So yesterday, Andrew and I went out to the wetlands to watch the rocket launch. Really great experience. Grateful that I was able to take my wife out. It was her first time being able to see a rocket launch. Like when you watch the video, and as you watch the video, you get an opportunity to. It's not as spectacular as you would think. I was about 15 miles southwest of the location where it actually took place on the St. Johns River. We went there. We chose to go there versus going anywhere closer to the beach because we just didn't want to deal with crowds, and I figured the location I chose was going to be occupied by the least amount of people, and I happened to be right. So it turned out to be a good thing. Well, anyway, so we get there. I start doing some filming after the launch, and one thing about Florida, there's gators, and there's wildlife everywhere. When we first moved to Orlando, moving from North Carolina, it was pretty cool because the area we chose to live in was, like, really, it suited our needs. It suited where I needed to be at life. And what's really cool about the area, we woke up in the morning and there was deer in the yard, turkey in the yard, pigs roaming around, wild boar roaming around. My dog at the time, Mackenzie, rest in peace, she would go out and have a good time with the woodland critters. Anyway, one thing I know about the woods is you respect the woods, and the woods will respect you. And that goes no matter where you're at. So here we are. We're in the wetlands. There's about maybe 20 people at most, about 5 families in the area. And one family, they're roaming up and down the beach. You'll see, and at this point, and we're starting to film. We're moving locations because it was just too crowded where we were at. There was too many people roaming around and talking loud. So we wanted to get some seclusion so we can start filming part of the episode for Tools of the Trade. And so we're competing with a lot of atmospherics. We're competing with wildlife. We're competing with people in the area, and we're also competing with our own security. So my wife, I'm glad I did this. I wanted my wife to be involved in the filming of this, and she's capturing everything on camera, but at the same time, because we have the water to my back, she's pulling security for me. But anyway, so to paint the picture, there's this group of men. They're walking down the river, and there's a crocodile, or an alligator, in the area. My wife pointed it out to me, and I do what we call 5 and 25. Basically, because I'm going to be in the area, I don't want to disrupt wildlife, nor do I want wildlife to affect me. So I don't want to get bit. I don't want to get I don't want my wife to get bit. So, things I'm looking for is hornet's nest, looking for little critter holes, alligators nesting in high grass, and alligators behind me in the water. So I do a 5 and 25, which is looking 5 meters in my immediate area and then going out 25 meters and just scanning the area to make sure there's nothing in the area that's going to be we're going to be disrupting, or it's going to be a harm to us. So my wife, right when I start doing this, my wife is like, Hav, there's a gator. It's at this point, it's behind me and to my left. So I'm like, all right. It kind of caught me off guard because the last gator I saw was at the location where we're at. So I had been looking in this area anyway, and I hadn't seen any alligators breaking surface. And at this point, the alligator broke surface. So there we were, looking at it, and we see this family walking down the shoreline. And by this point, an airboat had passed, and now the Gator had went below surface. So now the Gator subsurface. We don't know where it's at, but we're still a good distance from the water line. And we're at the point where the beach sand meets the grasslands, the high grass. So that's where we're at. So as we're getting situated, this family's walking down the beach. They get to about where we're at, and we noticed that right away. I knew I had spoken to the gentleman earlier, one of the guys in the group earlier, and I knew he understood a little bit of English. I understand a little bit of Spanish. I didn't even try speaking Spanish to him. I just made some pointy talkies. I was like, "Hey man, there's an alligator in the water," and the way they're fishing, they're casting nets. So I'm like, "All right, cool." So he gave me the thumbs up. He acknowledged, and I was like, "All right." Well, further down the shore where he just came from was his family. His looked like might have been his a wife of one of the guys in the group, and two kids, a little boy and little girl. Little girl about anywhere from 9 to 11 years old, and the little boy anywhere from 6 to 8 years old. Now, the alligators that are in the area are pretty big, so 11 to 8-year-old kid is a pretty decent meal for these alligators. But the gentlemen who are now fishing in our area, and you'll see it in the video, they're casting their nets. This is after they're still casting their nets after we told them there was an alligator in the area. They're not worried about it. So as they're casting, they start catching fish, and so now the Gators, it's got the Gators' attention. So now the Gators are now approaching the fishermen that are net casting. So one of the rules is don't feed the wildlife. Don't feed the wildlife. Don't feed the wildlife. And I'm going to take time in this episode to talk about this because this is real important, especially here in Florida. And you can just assume that if there's a puddle on the ground, there's a gator in it. All right, just assume that. But anyway, so they're feeding these tilapia fish that they're catching to the gators, and so what happens? More gators show up. So they move further down the line. We start we're like, holy crap. So I have my gun on me. I have my pistol on me, which I carry all the time, my EDC. So I'm like, you know what? I know this pistol's not going to do anything, but at least if I shoot it, if I shoot it with this 9mm, it's going to hurt it. And hopefully it won't mess with us, and it'll get people over to help us out if needed. So anyway, I'm all right. We start filming, you'll see, and at some point the the little boy approaches as we're getting ready, and I told him, because the fathers have gone down the shoreline, and by this point there's 4 or 5 gators between where we're at and where the men are at. So now at this point they're moving south. We're north of the men's location, and just north of our location is the little boy's family and his little boys. All right, so they're continuing to move south, the men, and this little boy approached. I send him back to his grandmother or whoever it is that's supposed to be supervising them, and they turn around and go back. And about 20 minutes later, a couple minutes later, as we're doing the episode, my wife looks over my shoulder and is like, "Hey, we got one popping up over your shoulder." So I'm like, all right. So we stopped for a second, and by this time, I guess the little girl and little boy took advantage of this opportunity of us not filming and to walk down the shoreline. And so I told the little girl, like, "Hey, look, there's gators." I pointed them out, and she was like, "All right, we're cool." And I'm looking out for the welfare of the kids. So I stopped what we're doing, and I go ahead and decided to follow him down. I got my pistol with me, And I got them about 3/4 of the way. The dad saw what I was doing, or whoever, uncle, brother, whatever, turn around and come and police up the kids. So we go back, finish up the shoot, and as we're packing up, these kids are walking back by themselves with these nets. And I look down the river, sure enough, that's what I see. Those fishermen in the water, waist deep, casting their nets. I'm like, all right. So they must know what they're doing. They must come down here quite a bit to get this comfortable. But the thing I'm not comfortable with, the size of these gators, sending the kids out, and it spells bad news. So at the end of the day, do not feed the wildlife. All right, so I'm gonna stop right now, continue on. I wanted to put this in here because this is an issue that does bother me, and I figure I'm gonna have to start speaking up. At least speak up. Just say, hey, do my part. Let people know. Be aware. Don't try to leave the area the way you found it. Another issue I saw there was the garbage. I can't stand. One of the big things I hated seeing in Afghanistan is when we would be out on patrol and when my buddies just throw a water bottle down, or one of the Afghans. My buddies weren't bad about this, but the Afghans and some of the contractors were just really horrible about this. Have a water bottle, be out on patrol, whatever, and they just take their water bottle and throw it on the ground. I'm like, man, and I go pick it up, throw it in a trash bag that we have on one of our trucks. It just bugs me. So we want to leave the environment the same way in better condition than we arrived there. So pick up after your trash, burn your fires in a fire ring and where it's permittable. Even when you're fishing, because I did some fishing yesterday, any line that you bring, take it out with you. All that line ends up in the water and ends up killing the wildlife, and this is not a cool thing. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox. I said what I had to say. I'm gonna continue on with the episode, and little kids, alligators, fear of people getting eaten. Let's talk about what this episode is supposed to be about, which it is tools of the trade, right? This is going to be an introductory segment into the land navigation series of the show. So what we have here is a Tasmanian tiger map case. So one of the things that you need to have is a map case when you're doing land navigation, especially for any school you go to. All right, most schools will allow you to bring this as an extra. Most Army schools will allow you to bring this as an extra piece of kit, but it's not. It's not going to be something that's going to be required on the packing list. So what a lot of guys will do is bring some extra freezer lock bags, freezer bags, and add duct tape or 100-mile-an-hour tape to it and make map cases from that. The bigger the bag, the better, and you want the bag to be somewhat breathable so that when you put the map inside the bag, you're able to fold it up and air is allowed to escape. All right, so it only makes sense. So this is a Tasmanian tiger map case. I bought this in Afghanistan about 8 years ago at a PX, and so start off with this particular one. Has a spot for holding your pins, and I don't have the one pin that I'm looking for. So, but yeah, it has your pins, pockets for your pins, pockets to store your map cases and protractors. It's made out of, this one comes in a multi-cam design, and it has this plastic sheeting on the front end with a YKK zipper for accessing and putting in your map cases, your maps inside the case. So what you're going to do then is you're going to fold up the map, because they're pretty big pieces of paper, and you're going to fold it to where you see the area that you're going to be operating in or doing land navigation in within this one page, this opening. So when you look at it, that's the first thing you actually see. All right. Again, this is foldable. You want to avoid, I would advise avoiding map cases with a Velcro. And here's the thing, zippers last. Neither one are going to go a long time without failing, a zipper or Velcro. But the problem with Velcro is if you're patrolling with this, if you're in a type of school where you're going to be doing actual patrols and moving stealthily in the wood line is one of the requirements, then you want a zipper. They're very quiet. You can zip it up. You can zip it open and zip it closed very slowly with very little noise. All right. All right. So I prefer the zipper over the Velcro. And I like this particular case, and this is the first time I ever actually bought a map case. And the reason why I bought this was because most map cases that you find are really bulky. They're real big. This one right here can actually, it's the size of it's a little bit bigger than a Write in the Rain notebook. And it folds and it goes right. It fits very well inside your cargo pocket. All right. And the only thing I don't like is the Velcro strap that's here. I never took it off because I was operating out of a vehicle, and where noise and light discipline wasn't really that much of a big deal. So this is one of the tools of the trade that I highly recommend acquiring. If you don't want to spend anywhere from $10 to $25, $30 on a map case, I would go to the store, spend $5 or $6 on a box of freezer bags, and use the freezer bags for the school. But most schools will allow you to bring a map case to it because it doesn't provide an advantage over anyone else when they provide Ziploc bags to use. So, all right, next thing. Totally allowable at any Army school is pace count beats when you're doing land nav, or pace count knots. This is what I call it because there are no beats. All right, all it is 550 cord or paracord that's been knotted into 9 knots. Each of these knots and divided into 2 sections. I have a section up here with 5 knots, and I have a section down here with 9 knots. So I'm going to talk about the section with the 9 knots first. So these knots, each of these knots represent 100 meters. In the military, to measure distance, we use nautical miles or meters, kilometers, to measure distance. All right. That being said, when we land nav, you can use nautical miles, you can use statute miles, or you can use meters, but it's easier to use meters. So 100 meters is a distance for to move one of these knots. So what you need to find out first is what your pace count is. And your pace count can vary from 60 to 65, 70 steps. And this is how you get your pace count. You have to first measure out 100 meters. There's approximately just over 3 feet and 1 meter. So for 100 meters, you're going to need about 320 feet, plus or minus. I'll do the math, and I'll do another video on doing a pace count. So when I do my pace count, for 100 meters, walking on a flat surface is 60 paces. And the paces are counted on every left foot or every right foot. Either way, you want to do it every other foot. So that means when I step once with my left, right, I don't count. Next time my left foot hits the ground, that's 1, 2, 3. When I get up to 60, on average, I should be at 100 meters. So when I hit 100 meters, I have this actually attached to my kit. And when I hit 100 meters, I just slide a knot down. And I do so until up to 9. And when I hit 900, which 9 will represent 900, I will count another 60 steps, and then I will bring down these knots, which represent every kilometer. So once I hit 900 meters, I go past it, I go into the 1,000. Once I hit 1,000, boom, 1 kilometer. Then I take a pause, take a break, drink some water, take a knee, recalibrate, look at my map, reset my knots back up to the top, and I start over again into my 2nd kilometer. All right. So 60 meters, or 60 steps, is 100 meters for me, walking on a flat surface with a 60-pound ruck on my back. All right. Now, say for instance, the distance I'm traveling is 625 meters. So all I do is divide the number of steps into 4. All right. And that will give me how many steps I need. So for instance, if 60 is 100 meters, then 15 is 25 meters. So 15 steps for me will be 25 meters. Now, if it's say 100 or 650 meters, then it will be 600, or it would be 60 meters. Then I would be 30 steps for that 50, because you said just divide 2 into 50 and you get, or 2 into 60, you get 30. So 30 complete steps will give me 30. 75 will give me 45. So forth and so on. Okay, so that's on average. Now when you do your pace counts, you just don't want to do it on flat surfaces. You want to do it uphill, you want to do it downhill, you want to do it running, you want to do it in the woods. But for me, for the most part, 60 is the standard for when I'm land navving. All right, so pace count beats, they're great. I make these myself. I'll do a tutorial on them, on how to make them in the future. All right. So a notepad is next. All right. Great. Notepads are great. Especially, I love the writing reins because they come with a lot of tools on it. First of all, writing reins are designed to do what as advertised, which is write in the rain. All right. They have special pins for them, and these special pins, you can use pencil as well, but these special pins are designed to write on wet paper, on the wet paper provided. I like these because you could use the back if you lose a protractor. I don't know if you can see it there. Probably not. There you have centimeters on the right side here, and then on the left you have inches. And if you use the inches, if you by chance happen to lose your protractor, you can use the inches to plot grids on a 150 scale map. All right, pretty nifty. No, I'm wrong on that. Yeah, I'm definitely wrong on that. You can't use, that's what I thought. For some reason I was thinking that the blocks on the 150 scale map was 1 inch. But it isn't. Alright, so you can though, but anyway, but yeah, you can use it to measure distance on any map actually. So this is great. I love them. This one I got this at It's Sick a couple years ago for some swag from the booth there. Oh man, that's getting a little dark. Anyway, let me line this up. All right, there we go. I was getting all washed out behind me, but yep, there you go. All right, so we got a notepad. We talked about the map case. We talked about the pace count beads. Next we're going to talk about, since I had it in my hand, we're going to talk about protractors. All right. So this is what they call a GTA, a graphic training aid. All right, that's what GTA stands for. This is a 05-02-012. And what this is a protractor. This is what we use to determine where we're at on a map in relation to the terrain surrounding us. So we have the right map, we have, and we're trying to figure out where we're at down to the meter. We can use the protractor here. The protractor has 3 different scales for 3 different types of map. So starting from the smallest or the biggest, which is a 1/50,000. Yeah, you can't see it. It's right there. Then I rotate it again to the 1/100,000 right here, and then 1/250,000. Now these maps, I can't see if you can get it focus in on here. On the outside of these protractors, you have measurements that are for degrees and mils. Degrees are for land navigation, and mils are just for calling in for the assistance of calling in artillery. All right, that's the measurement they use to call it artillery. The string, what you see here, none of these protractors, none of these Army issued protractors come with this string, but it does have a hole that's already pre-punched in here. And this hole is normally used, mostly, it's not supposed to be used for the string, but this is what we use for the string. We use it for string as a quick method of getting your azimuth. And as you just use, so you would lay this down on the map, line it up to where you're at on your location, and then if you're given the azimuth of where you're supposed to go, you just go from the point of origin where you're at to your destination, and you measure out that azimuth, and that will give you a grid azimuth. That's a grid azimuth is an azimuth taken with a protractor on a map, and that has to be converted into a magnetic azimuth. And when I go further into map reading and land navigation, I'm gonna cover that. But for now, that's what that does. You have to convert a grid azimuth to a magnetic azimuth, and you use that by you get that information from the declination on a standard military map. All right, it's an add subtract rule. All right, but the protractor can help you with resection and intersection. So, and basically, say for instance, you take two known points and you want to figure out where you're at. You see the map, you see the points on your map, and you see the 2 points on your map. You have and you can see them physically, right? You're actually on the ground, you can see them physically, but you want to know where your exact location is. So what you want to do is you want to shoot an azimuth. You can use your map and your compass to shoot an azimuth to those locations, and then doing some math, you can intersect those two angles and figure out where you're at exactly on the map. So this is the Army issue protractor. Now you can buy the same protractors or similar protractors on the net or at any mom and pop Army surplus store. I know you can't really see them. This one, they usually cost about anywhere from $5 to $10. I don't like them as much as I like the Army issue ones. These are only ones that you will be required to have. You can bring, again, off the shelf, commercial off the shelf models, but when you're graded, you're going to be graded off the use of the ones that are provided by the military. All right, so another commercial off the shelf item is this little compass here. This is a M5 SK Santo compass. I like it. I've had it for about 15 years. It's great. It's always been reliable, but again, it's not an Army military issue item or a standard issue item for most military schools, and you will have to use a military issued or Army issued compass, which leads me into here. So this is just familiarization. Here you go. You got the what is it? The Hotel 3. The 3 hotel model Army issued compass. All right. I'm going to go into more detail about the compasses, simply because these compasses have so much going on with them. All right. This particular compass is in really good shape when it comes to cosmetics, but as far as functionality, is completely broken. All right. So with this compass, this is called a Lensatic compass, and this is what you'll become most familiar with when you're at a military school doing land navigation. Normally they'll issue you 2 of them because they do not always function correctly. A compass that's considered to be fully functional has a tolerance of plus or minus 3 degrees, meaning it can be off by plus or minus 3 degrees, which is totally fine. But I wouldn't want to use that in a land navigation course. Even if it's off by a degree, I wouldn't want to use it. So I always want to make sure that is on. So what they do to make sure that is correct, that they will pick several points, and they have these stakes where you will walk up to the stake, which is basically a 4x4 in the ground, and on it will have a degree, and then you will move your compass into that direction, and then you'll tell whoever the instructor is what's at that degree. And if he says, hey, if it's a tower and he has on his papers a tower, then it's within tolerance. All right. and they'll do that with multiple stations just to make sure that your compass is on and you know how to read it properly. So you have this ring here, and this ring turns. This is what keeps you. This is what I call my I forget what they call it, but anyway, I use this. I line my north seeking arrow up on that line when I'm on azimuth, and that's just a quick way of keeping me going in the right direction and not veering off. As long as I have the north seeking arrow lined up with this line here, I'm gonna stay on my azimuth, my predetermined azimuth. When I have to shoot an azimuth out quite a distance, all right, first let me talk about this little guy here. So this is a lens and an aiming sight. All right, the lens allows you to see very clear. Let's see if I can get that on there. See how it magnifies the numbers there? There you go. It magnifies the numbers there. And yeah, when it's in the right configuration like this, you look through it at the direction and you find an object. So if you're going at a 1 degree or 7 degree azimuth for 800 meters, you want to find the smallest object in that area or the biggest object in that area. All right, so I'm back. So yeah, I'm gonna go. The battery died. I had to change out batteries. So yeah, I'm gonna go into more depth about this because using this it's really easy instrument to use, but it's also you got to be careful with it. It's not it's pretty rugged, but it can break. And the last thing you want is a broken compass while you're in the middle of a land navigation course. What's really important when you stow it away, you want to make sure your aiming sight lens thing here is locked down. So what that does, it prevents the compass on the inside from spinning and damaging the pendle that it's on, the pin that it's resting on. If that pin bends, as in the case with this particular compass, then the compass won't work at all. And then you close it up, and this particular compass comes with a compass case, which is an inspectable item. So if you're going to, say, Ranger School, you're going to you're in a Special Forces qualification course, this is an inspectable item. And it has to be functional. They will issue you a compass, but it's always good to have your own in the event that you just want to have your own. I always have my own, because if you lose it, then it's already paid for, and you just give the Army the one that you own, and you just have to buy another one. But if you don't have your own stuff, a lot of times the Army will charge you, and they always charge you more than what it's worth. So in this case, so this is the one here I've had for most of my career, and you can see that the paint's chipping off, and it just needs to be replaced. But I think at the time I bought this was like $60 or $70. I've seen them as high as $110. That seems to be the standard going price for the Lensatic, the H3, the model H3. CMMG. Don't take these apart. They do have a small amount of radioactive material in it, and but otherwise, as long as it's in the case, you're safe. Or else they wouldn't give it to you, right? So, and lastly, I'm going to talk about. So you're going to have maps. That's another plus, but maps vary depending on where you're at. Let's see. All right. Now, lastly, writing utensils. You want. Oh crap! Come on, man. You want a writing utensil that fine tip. I would not recommend a number 2 pencil. I would recommend that as a backup, but you want at least a map marker that's permanent, a map marker that's erasable, and both fine tip. What I mean by fine tip, I'm talking about 0.5 fine tip and a 0.5 tip mechanical pencil with eraser. And the reason why I would use the mechanical pencil over the other two to start off with is that with the mechanical pencil you can write on the map and you can erase it. You can erase what you write, which I highly recommend getting into practice of. But with the map marker, when you write notes on the map marker, on your protective sheet, what ends up happening is that rubs off really easy, regardless if it's permanent or erasable. So that's why I suggest the pencil first and the other two as backup. All right, so that's what I have for right now for tools of the trade. I'm gonna have another segment on how to use these actual applications of these tools in the real world and in your training, and how to use it correctly. So thanks for staying tuned. Make sure you hit subscribe and like, and I'll get back to you on the next episode, which will be, I don't know, we'll figure it out. All right, thank you. All right, babe, I'm done.
Stage 1 tanks pressing for flight.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5,
Right there.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Go up to where his palm is. Yeah, there's a couple gators roaming around. They tend to stay away from humans, but you still got to be cautious because we don't know if anybody's feeding the wildlife. And then two, we got cattle that graze the area. Alright, so we're going to stop right here. We're going to do a 5 and 25 just to make sure there's no wildlife in the area. We're not disturbing the wildlife. Alright, so 5 and 25 is basically we're going to stop in one place, look around us, 25 meters, 5 meters first, and then we're going to go out. Oh wow, yeah, sure is. See, this is why we do it.
right, everybody. Like I said, I mean, we just had a little boy walk up. And I told him to go back to his parents because of the alligators. All right, babe. All right, so these guys are just being jackasses. They're actually throwing fish out to the gators, which is a no-no. Well, I'm glad I sent that boy back, because you can see the one on the shore right there, and then one right there close to the shore, and then that's another about, yeah, and then we got
3 right over there.
yeah, so hopefully these airboats will chase some of them off. That's a big sucker right there. Just escorting these kids. Making sure they get down to their family. Alright. So now I gotta run down the gauntlet. That's a pretty big dude. Check that out. Yeah, that's a 10-footer right there. And you got another one right here. Tell you, everything in Florida wants to eat you.